And actually, sorry, this is a four-way, not a four-way race, but there will be two races going on at once between Starcrunsher and GabxRozan and Davideku and Mallix.
Yes, and for those wondering, it's also really close between Davideku and Mallix. They're just 4 minutes apart in PBs, so there's going to be a lot going on across both races, so we'll try to cover as much as possible for you all.
And as you can see, we are getting into prologue. First stage of the game, also pretty much the tutorial. At this point, you don't have your dash, so you can just climb and jump.
Yep, you'll see our runners are all jumping across the level, especially in this latter half. Jumping will save you 2 frames over just walking across. So, you know, faster optimization for the easiest level in the game.
As we're speedrunners, any little thing we can do to go faster is obviously going to be done.
Alright, everyone hopping out of prologue at around the same time, and we'll all be entering Chapter 1, where we'll see the first of these few dash mechanics come into play. So do you want to go into a few of these real quick?
Alright, so obviously you have the basic dash, and then you have 2 of the biggest used techniques of the game, which are hyper dashing and wave dashing. Hyper dashing is basically when you crouch and hold in the direction left or right that you're going to go, and dash followed by jumping, and that allows you to do a long and short jump that goes very fast and allows you to move much faster than you normally would be just by dashing and jumping. Wave dashing, which is definitely a technique that we came up on our own and definitely steal from a different video game, is basically the same as hyper dashing, but you do it in the air.
Alright, and as you can see, we're all flying through this chapter, so we don't get to talk too much about it. But you can also do a couple other things with these mechanics. As you can see from Mallix just there, you can do an extended hyper dash, which is just putting your jump input until like 3 frames after you input the dash. So you get the same momentum as you would from a hyper, but you save your jump.
Yeah.
Right. Everyone's going to finish up Chapter 1 with a low to mid 120, or 1 minute, so that's pretty good from all of our runners.
That's a bit behind, but at this point of the run, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, still very early. Alright, Chapter 2 is going to introduce us to dream blocks, where they'll act as little dash extenders while also restoring your dash when you go through them. So, coming up here on both Davideku and Starcrunsher screens, you'll see a little glitch where you can alter your Y positioning to get inside of that dream block. Yeah, just dash through these dream blocks. It takes you in that direction, you get your dash back, and allows you to move around a lot more.
And as you'll see some of these runners doing, you can actually jump out of a dream block. You can hyper out of the dream block as well, but it's fairly tough to do. So there's not a lot of places where it would be used in the run.
Yeah, the hypers and all will come after, or come in like Chapter 7 if they choose to do it. Alright, we'll see the first instance of lock switches here. You have to hit these in order to activate a block to progress through the level. And all of our runners are currently in the battle and chase, where these clones of us, or I guess part of us, are chasing us. They're about 3 seconds behind, but they mirror your exact movements. So all the cool stuff you're doing, they can do it too.
Yeah. And as someone that's not a great speedrunner, seeing the Battleons move this fast, it's a bit frightening. So.
Yeah. When you do all these like really cool stuff, you're gonna feel pretty good about yourself. Then you see them doing the same thing, and they're coming after you, trying to get you. So that's unnerving.
And Gab was an unfortunate death at the end of a very long route. longest room in the chapter.
Yeah, taking death on that screen is definitely brutal. It's the longest room in a chase sequence, and dying towards the end of it just loses you a ton of time. Alright, most of our runners are going through the awake sequence here, where your own worst enemy is the... Well, actually, yeah, your movement's your own worst enemy. But the terrain is very hilly, so you have to utilize your dashes in a way that doesn't slow you down against these corners.
Yeah, it's an area where there really isn't any luck or cycles or anything involved. It's just how well you can move and how much you practice the section.
Speaking of cycles, though, welcome to Chapter 3, where you'll see a lot of cycles.
Yep. Pretty much the entire chapter is cycle-based, where you have these dust creatures flying around in a very specific way, and the difference between one cycle and the next is so big that a lot of optimization has been done to make sure you can get through the fastest cycle.
Yeah, and even if you can't get through the first cycle, there is a ladder death cycle that happens when, of course, you die. So they don't necessarily do the same things they do when you first enter a room. And generally they're a bit tougher, but, you know, they're all the same to our runners.
Runners pretty much have to practice both in order to make sure they have a backup strategy. Or they could just not die, but that's a lot tougher than it sounds.
Yeah, just don't die. It's that easy.
I mean, if the task can do it, anyone else can.
Yeah, this task person's pretty good at the game, and he can get through without death. Alright, we'll see the huge mess section coming up on Davideku's room. There are 3 kinds of blocks here that you have to take note of. There are these wooden blocks that are brown, you have the books, which are a nice shade of green, and you have the towels, which are a pretty cool shade of purple. So our job here is to clear this huge mess out to get a key to progress. Now, the routing here is a bit... it's the same among all runners. You want to go based on how Oshiro comes out from the end of a route. So as you'll see after Davideku hits a switch, coming up in the next room, Oshiro is going to come up right to our left. Pretty conventional timing.
Yeah. And also, a few screens ago, you saw Davideku doing a thing where he jumped off of the spike. He's not actually jumping off of the spike. That's a pretty common misconception with this game. He's actually jumping off of the wall behind the spikes. So the hitboxes in this game are weird, where if you're moving away from a spike wall, it can't actually hurt you. So runners will use that to their advantage to jump off of spike walls. Technically not, but jump off of the walls where there are spikes in order to get a lot more vertical distance.
Yeah, despite the name, it's very misleading. You're just interacting with the wall right below the spikes or right behind it. All runners are navigating this huge mess really well, which is, it's pretty tough to do at first.
Still a very close race, all 4 of the runners on the second section.
Right, Davideku is going to hit the last switch, and we'll start moving towards the key and towards the elevator shaft. And Star in the race above is right behind him. Alright, so towards the end of this section are some of the longer rooms in the hotel. So, especially this one right here. The deaths are a lot more punishing, as we said towards the end of Chapter 2, and they're a little more complicated, but, our runners can get through them no problem.
And on Davideku's screen, you could see he did a wall bounce across the little columns going down, and that's another thing that you'll see a lot in the speedrun, because it basically gives you a lot more height and a lot maintains most of your momentum, so you can move a lot faster than just climbing up a wall.
Yeah, these wall bounces are basically vertical hypers, as I've heard it called. Right,
I've never heard that phrase before, actually.
Wait, really?
No.
It's sort of the same idea. I guess. I don't know. Anywho, we're starting the Oshiro chase sequence on Davideku's screen. Oshiro's mad at us, or battling, so he's trying to come after us. He'll lock onto our vertical positioning. At Bolt of Lightning is going to lock him in, so we can lure him out of areas, we can bait him so we can get up over him. But generally we just want to avoid him or go too fast enough that's where he can't reach us.
You can also jump on top of his head, and that will give you your jump back, so that's a good backup strategy if they miss the strats that they're intending to do.
Plus it just looks pretty cool. I mean, you tell him to sit down. Alright, Davideku having a bit of trouble doing the last bit of that section, but still gets through it pretty easily.
Clears Preserve with a pretty good time.
Alright, Chapter 4 coming up here on Davideku's screen while everyone else is entering parts of the Oshiro chase. But why don't you start explaining some of the mechanics from Chapter 4? It's a good few of them.
So the first thing you'll probably notice is the green orbs. So how that works is when you touch the green orbs, you go into them for a few seconds, not less than a few seconds, but you can shorten that time by dashing out of them. And what they do is they shoot you in the direction that you hold while you are inside the orb after a short time. So if you're holding up, they'll shoot you up, left, etc. And yeah. And there are also clouds, which kind of just work as sort of trampolines in a way, where if you jump while at the bottom point of it, it launches you very high into the air. The blue clouds, they stay there forever, but the pink clouds, they need a short time to cool down after you use them.
And coming up on Davideku's screen is the first auto-scroller of the chapter. So you can't exactly go fast through all these levels. Chapter 4 in particular has a few of these auto-scrollers, but using momentum from that block, as Davideku just showcased, you can get enough momentum to jump across that wide rift and climb up to the next area.
And all four of the winners now on Chapter 4, so it's still a very close race.
Alright, Starcrunsher here going to go for that spike jump. Gets it first try. And Davideku here is back on the second auto-scroller.
This one doesn't really have a way to skip unless you're the task.
So I've heard only one person has ever done it outside of a run. It's that frame perfect.
Yeah.
Good little cycle skip there from Davideku to skip the second bubble using the wind to blow him into the third one. And now he's here in the harsh wind section. The wind is picked up violently and is going to push us back. So we can't necessarily walk or run to get across the level.
And there you'll see snowballs, which work in a very similar way as Oshiro does, except they come from the right side of your screen. And in my opinion, they're a bit harder to dodge than Oshiro is.
Yes. On that note, these snowballs are coming in from the direction you're going in, so they close in on you a lot faster than Oshiro would, which, in my opinion, makes them a little harder to deal with. Alright, last room here for Davideku. Very nice.
Just misses a sub 3 minute, which would have been very easy.
Yeah, sub 3 minute ridge is absolutely wild.
And now Davideku is entering Mirror Temple, the 5th stage of the game. And the first thing you'll notice is these blocks that move when you dash. And those move very fast, so you're able to generate a lot of momentum from using them. So you'll see a lot of instances in this chapter and chapter 7 where runners will launch off of one extremely quickly and just fly across levels.
Yep. And we also have these red bubbles, which, similar to the green ones from chapter 4, they'll send you in the direction of your choice, but unlike the green ones, they'll send you infinitely in that direction, or at least until you hit a wall or choose to dash out of it.
And here we'll see an instance of, or maybe not, we'll see, of them using the blocks as a lot of momentum. It's really cool to watch.
Yeah, that one in particular is really fun if you can hit the corner boost at the end. For those that don't know, corner boosts are basically just dashing into a corner and then jumping and grabbing it at the same time. So you get some pretty sick momentum to come from that to go along with the momentum from that dash block. So you can just fly through that room and the next room if executed perfectly.
Also, I know they're not part of the same race, but Starcrunsher and Mallix are almost perfectly in sync right now. So that's really interesting to see how that develops closely.
That is actually pretty sick. All right, coming up on Davideku's screen is the introduction of the Seekers. You know, talk about these because they're very prominent in the latter half of this chapter.
Yeah, so basically what the Seekers will do is when they see you, they'll turn red and go extremely quickly towards your direction. And they follow both your X and Y coordinates, so that makes them kind of unlike Oshiro and Snowballs. And they also work as the same way as Oshiro, where if you stomp on their head, they will be stunned for a short while. But unlike Oshiro, they stay there and they kind of go into this small ball, and after a few seconds they'll have an explosion which can activate switches or shoot you in the direction that you're holding.
Yep, so for this part in particular, you're going to see our runners abuse these functions of the Seekers to traverse rooms quicker like that. Also, holy cow, that Ultra from Davideku. Yeah, he's going through the Seeker room. Okay, as I say that, he just kind of stumbles on that red block, but before that, he was just going crazy fast through these rooms.
Yeah. Most of the runners will come into those rooms with a particular strategy in mind to get through them, because the Seekers can be kind of unpredictable if you mess up. So you might see them exiting a room if they fail to try to get back in it and get the same cycle as they wanted before. And it's hard to improvise in this game.
Yeah, in these rooms in particular, it's very important to know what your plan is before going in, because these Seekers, they don't wait for you. Right, Star and Mallix are both entering the Seeker Gauntlet, and Davideku is coming up on the Theo section, which has some pretty cool movement and is among the favorite sections in the game for most top-level speedrunners.
And among the least favorites for many non-top-level speedrunners.
Exactly. Yeah, so the Theo section is definitely complex, but there's some really cool stuff you can do in it, which is why it's very mixed depending on where you are in the skill tier. But as you can see, you can't dash of Theo in your hands, but you can throw him, and you can dash to catch up to him. And you can. Oh, I was ready to show off a little momentum boost from that dash platform, but we'll see that in just a bit, hopefully. Yeah, basically, you're getting Theo through these rooms as protected as possible because you need him to advance. So he can hit switches, he can hit coins. He's basically an extension of you. Whoa! Good momentum from Davideku to skip a good portion of that eyeball room. And does that.
I think a pretty nice tempo.
Yeah,
Having a nice run.
sub 5 is really good, even at the top level. Yeah, so we'll see the introduction of golden feathers here, where you use your, I'd say preferred analog stick to just cut some corners, maneuver through these sky blocks. They're very finicky in movement, but they're still like pretty feel good.
Davideku electing not to go for late skip, much to the dismay of most of the people in town section, most likely. But
yeah, Lake Skip is a very frame-tight skip that includes a couple of wall bounces. The second one in particular is only a couple frames of leeway for a wall bounce.
yeah, the developers actually made it easier after it was discovered, because before it was even more difficult to do, so no one would go for it in the runs. But they decided to make the 1 frame window, 1 pixel window into a 3 pixel window. That makes it a lot.
Yeah, that included with an increase in pixel length for wall bounces allows threat skip to become much more RTA viable. Alright, we'll see the Theo section come up for Gab. So the 3 other runners are all on this section now, but Star's right at the end of it.
And Mallix just went.
Mallix is done with it too. Wow.
So very close between Star and Mallix.
Yeah, all of these races are really close. We should mention the introduction of these crush blocks, or as the community likes to call them, Kevin blocks.
Yeah.
As that sound you hear from them is from from one of the devs, Kevin, who you may have seen at the GDQ races. The story goes that he stuck his head in a bucket of water and screamed into it, thus giving us this beautiful sound.
It is beautiful. And what the blocks do is, if you dash into them from one of the blue sides, they will go extremely quickly in that direction, and they can break some blocks, and you can use them to travel across them pretty fast.
Yep, and we also have these bumpers, which are exactly as they sound. They just bump you depending on where you hit them. It's easier to dash into them, because that way you know which way you're going, presumably. But as we saw earlier, and we'll probably see coming up on either Mallix or Star's screen, if you hold away on the frame that you hit them, you'll get, I believe, double the momentum. So it allows you to get more horizontal distance, which allows you to skip a bumper.
And here we'll see a bit of an intended shortcut on Davideku's screen by the developers, where they actually allow for paths through the crystals that you can go through and save a lot of time instead of going around the outsides.
You can save time by going through that skip at the risk of not hitting checkpoints in that room. So if you don't get a first try, you'll respawn back at the top, as opposed to somewhere else within that maze.
Someone earlier in the tournament, I forget who, actually went through the first part of it and went back up and hit the checkpoint and then failed the second part. So
Oh, really?
yeah, it was something I hadn't really seen before.
Davideku is going to perform a flawless battle and dash. Thanks to the momentum from that crush block, you can perform a hyper with 2 bunny hops to get enough momentum to not only finish the rest of the screen, but to essentially fly through that room leading up to the battle and fight. Now, you can get stuck on the floor, which has happened today in the last race I was commentating. But you have to skip a cutscene before you actually hit battling, or else you'll be stuck on the floor and forced to retry. Okay, so as we enter the battle and fight, you'll see our runner try to hit Battlein. She's very defensive, so she's going to do everything in her power to stop us. But in order to progress through these rooms, we have to basically hit her quite a few times.
Or bop her, depending. Or boop her.
Yeah, bopper's probably the friendlier term. Mallix is coming up on the Spike Maze here, as is Star.
As you'll see on Davideku's screen, Madeline is shooting several glowing orbs and lasers at him, and if those hit you, it sends it back to you, kills you, and sends you back to the beginning of the room. And for each room, she has a specific pattern that she'll do. So, like on this room, it's all lasers, but on some, it'll be like sets of orbs.
Yeah, as I said, she's very, very defensive. So she's not going to let us get close to her. Now, as we get to the second half of this fight, we'll notice that she now has control over some blocks. Now, these blocks can fall on us. They can carry us across like this, although we can use a hyper to get some pretty sick momentum. Yeah, they'll be moving around. We can use them to our advantage, but they'll also try to be a hindrance to us.
And Davideku now on the second to last screen of that one. Actually, my favorite screen in the game, probably. It's not
this
hard, and I just like going through it.
This one right here on Davideku's screen, or
Yep.
That's a pretty cool screen, honestly. If I was any good at the battle and fight, then I'd probably love it a lot more. Right, but Davideku gonna use an ultra to get some pretty fast speed to finish up the longest and probably most punishing room death-wise in the battle and fight.
And as you see now, Davideku has 2 dashes in the air. His hair, Madeline's hair will be pink when he has 2 dashes available because Madeline has teamed up with her for reasons that I won't get into because spoilers. But now the hair will turn its normal red color after you've used 1 dash, which means you still have 1 dash remaining, which allows for a lot of cool skips and tricks that you can do that you normally wouldn't be able to do.
Yep, as we'll see throughout most of the summit, which is coming up here on Davideku's screen, they'll be spending a lot more time in the air than on the ground thanks to these dashes. So the theme of Summit is basically a mishmash of the previous chapters. Right now we're just at the base since in Chapter 6 we were forced down the mountain. So it's our goal to climb up all the way to the top in this chapter, which makes it far and away the longest one in the game.
Yep. Most of the top speedrunners will probably, these guys will probably be doing it somewhere between 9 and 12 minutes.
Yep. Right. Everyone else is working through the battle and fight really nicely. Mallix is almost here on the last screen of the fight, while Star is, actually. And Star gets through it very nice.
Still very close between Star and Mallix. That could be interesting.
Right. Davideku's working through the 500-meter section, which is based on Chapter 1, as you can see. So we'll see these zippers and these springs come back into play.
I'd also never heard the term zippers before, but according to Ben Teese's big book of bad names, that's what they're called. So,
Wait, come again?
I never heard the term zippers before.
Oh yeah.
If it's
Yeah, I've heard them called like what was it? Traffic blocks. I guess zippers are a newer term, but I don't know. We're back on the dream blocks where, as you pointed out earlier in the run, you can hyper out of these blocks, which Davideku has already done once, and he'll probably be doing a lot more in the next screen here. Ooh, hyper out of block mode ultra. I can't say I've seen it before, but it's pretty cool.
got a lot of interesting techniques that I'm not too familiar with.
Alright, we'll be going back to the death cycles and the dust creatures of 1500 meters here.
Most people consider this the hardest section of the game. It really depends on the runner too, but it's very precise and tricky.
It's got some of the longer rooms in the run, and with, well, like this one right here, but with the combination of cycles and these dust floors, which allow you to, well, which don't allow you to retrace your steps, it makes it pretty challenging to get through them. But Davideku is making light work of this.
You can just see a couple ultras in this one.
Yeah, it's going
Much faster than you would do.
He's going to leave and re-enter the room to avoid the death cycle and to set up the chain of ultras, which I don't know if we've talked about the definition of ultras, but it's basically just chaining a diagonal dash down to a hyper dash. So speed's uncapped on these diagonal dashes for whatever reason. I can't remember if it's intentional or not, but with these ultras, you can just chain together this intense speed, and it just doesn't slow down until you allow it to.
You see a lot of instances. I mean, I'm bringing up the task again, but it's pretty relevant. So you'll see instances of the task using ultras again and again in order to build up a crazy amount of speed in places like the Awake section at the end of Chapter 2.
Yeah, oh boy, that one. Yeah, there's another one right there. Davideku is probably the most liberal with his ultras.
He's done quite a few of them.
We'll see an auto-scroller skip here. We can extended hyper off of that dash block to skip that little section of spikes and get onto that other one.
And Starcrunsher now entering the 1500 section.
Yep, and Mallix will follow Star up in just a second. Well, Gab, he's a bit behind in this race, but he's definitely not out of it. This is all like super close. But he's starting up the base now. Right, but Davideku, he'll be on to 2,500 meters, which is one of my favorite sections for its nice pool of skips, which we'll see coming up.
Most famously, of course, door skip.
Oh, of course. The meme that never ends. Right, but notable one here is see Davideku do a spike jump here. Struggling a bit with it. But yeah, you can spike jump up and dash up there to get the key and perform the second intentional death of the run.
If you retry with the key, it stays in your possession, so you can use a retry to get it back to the beginning of the room and save quite a bit of time and not going back.
Yeah, it saves a few seconds, which is it's not as much as the one in Chapter 3, but it's still a pretty good time save. Right, and here's the aforementioned door skip, but
It's not going for it.
yep.
Oh,
It's probably
the second one though.
oh okay, half door step. That's fine. So fun little fact here: if you do half door skip in reverse order, where you just you skip the first button but then hit the second one, the second door doesn't open when you hit that second button. You actually have to hit both switches for that second one to open.
That makes sense though, because the first one is a lot easier to skip than the second one. So.
Yeah, of course. All right, the final gauntlet for Davideku has arrived. We're climbing this very big rock to get to the very top of the level.
Yep.
Do you want to talk a bit about the wind effects in these upcoming sections? Because it's a lot different from ones in Chapter 4.
So, as you can see, the wind is blowing downward on Davideku, and what that does is it means that it's much harder to climb vertical distance. Your climb will be slowed, and your jumps don't go nearly as high and you fall back. And so what that means is that you really don't want to just basically be climbing on a wall. So what he'll do is do a lot of dashing to make sure that he can get through the fence as fast as he can. And now you can see it's changing to the wind going up. And that basically just does the opposite of it going down, obviously, where you get more vertical height and you fall slower.
You're a lot floatier in updraft than you would be with downdraft. But that said, the extra height from these jumps can work to a disadvantage to our runners, especially after going through downdraft and having to deal with the negative effects to gravity.
And you'll see whenever they're falling in this section, it happens throughout the entire game, but most prevalently in this section, is that they'll hold down when they're falling to fall faster. And that, over the course of the run, saves a crap ton of time, because there's lots of places where you can just save a couple seconds by falling faster, and that really builds up over the course of the run.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a shout out to the aforementioned game that you mentioned, or that you referenced at the start of a run when we talked about wave dashing. You can fast forward just to increase your speed going down, but it's also riskier because you're, of course, as you go faster, you're coming up on obstacles faster.
Yep.
All right, Davideku is on the last screen here, has a couple of checkpoints to go.
This one is going to be, I mean, I hate to curse it, but very close to his PB. He most likely won't beat it, but his PB is 33:21, so.
It is insanely tight. Flag 1's coming up here. He'll have about 10 seconds, so I don't think it's quite possible. Yeah, after Flag 1, it gets very chill. There's hardly anything that can really pose a threat to you outside of these like lumpy spikes. He's going to come 1 second shy of a PB.
One second shy.
That's an insane run, even if it's not his best one.
Especially at this level.
Of course, and especially on this stage, too. So 33-22 to come out of Davideku. Very solid run to take the win over Mallix.
And Starcrunsher and Mallix have spread out a bit, but
Alright, Star's doing a pretty good job of getting through updraft. As I say, it just falls short of hitting that bumper. Alright, Mallix is also entering updraft, while Star comes up on the spike jump skip here. Or Gab does.
I didn't notice if Star and Mallix did this, but we'll get to see if Gab does it in the few streams here.
Alright, 2 rooms to go until we see what happens there. Oh, Mallix just hitting the last spike up to the next checkpoint. Loses a lot of time, but he's still working pretty nice.
Not to be boosted.
Alright, Star's up on the last screen now. Now, Star also has a pretty okay chance at PBing. Just under a minute until they pass that, so we'll see what happens here. Or at least
Star's PB is at 37:02, so still possible.
Oh no! Loses that second dash. You can't progress past that point without one.
Shame.
This is gonna be really close. Alright, Gab has gotten to work on Summit now. And as Mallix enters the last screen as well, Star is going to finish with a personal best of 36.53.
So PD by 9 seconds.
Very well done from Star.
And Mallix closing the room as well.
Alright, going to the last 2 checkpoints here from Mallix. Using a couple wall bounces and wall kicks to get some more vertical height. Last flag here.
Last flag is pretty simple and not a lot of things standing in your path, but it still is easy to die if you're nervous. But Mallix gets through it.
Yep, pretty well done. 37.49, which is, believe it or not, only 7 seconds off of PB. So all of our runners are doing really well today.
This entire tournament has been really surprising at how good runners have gone. No one's really been too far off of what they normally do. And we've seen a load of PB.
Right, that leaves us with Gab, who is very close to getting sub 40, which, surprise, surprise, would be a PB.
I think he had a, I might be wrong, but I think he had a 39.
If SRC is lying to me one more time, I swear. They're pretty
Definitely
sick.
had a PB on the, it was the first race of the tournament, but I'm not sure how much it was.
Ah, I see. Okay, that's different. At least in terms of uploading it.
Yeah.
Right, struggling a bit with the very tight windows there.
You could see he skipped the flag there, and that's done because you have to go out of the way to get to the checkpoint. What the flags do is they count down from 30, and when you hit one, you respawn to there next time you die. But certain flags you'll skip because you have to go out of the way to get them, or because it's not hard to do the next second, so there's no point to get.
Yeah. We love taking our risks in the community, so some of these you risk being set back further at the every reward of I don't know, a good few seconds.
Depending on the flag.
Alright, nice safe double dash to get through there, and last 2 flags. Ooh, just misdirects that dash. Gets on the second try. It's not going to be sub 40, unfortunately. But this is still a fantastic run from Gab. Alright, and a 40.08. Very well done from Gab. Very well done from all of our runners. They've put in a fantastic show for you guys today.
Yeah, all 4 runners performed extremely well.
Right, so it's going to be David and Star getting the wins, but fantastic times for everyone around. I think we have time for an interview if anyone's up for it. Yeah. Let me do this real quick. Right, just setting it up. And joining us all here, we have most of the cast from these races. We have Davideku, we have Mallix, and Starcruncher.
Hi.
Hi, guys.
All right, so everyone put in a really good showing today. All three of you getting sub 40. So how are you all feeling about your races? I guess let's start with Davideku.
It was good, but I missed PB by a second. So I guess it was pretty good. I was happy with getting most of the ultras, which I go for. So hopefully those were a good showcase.
Yeah,
And that's about it.
I've noticed you were very liberal with your uses of ultras, which is really fun to watch because
Yeah,
the
that's
speed you get
mostly
from
why I
those
do
is...
it. There's the swag, man. They're important.
Right?
Gotta
And
get those swag points.
the more swag points and speed running, the better. Mallix, how about you? How'd you feel about yours?
Yeah, I was so nervous before starting it, and most of the race too, but I think it went okay. I took a lot of chances that sometimes paid out, sometimes didn't. So sometimes I lost a lot of time, but it was okay.
Yeah, I mean, good part of speedrunning is taking these risks. It's pretty nice to see
Yeah.
them all.
Exactly.
It's a shame.
I wanted to
shame not
give
all
the
of them paid
audience
out there.
a show, you know.
I believe me, everyone here did that today, which is really fun. This is the ideal viewing experience. All right, and Star, how about you?
I guess my run went pretty well. I got a PB by 9 seconds with losing 26 seconds in 3000 M.
Yeah, I mean,
So many PBs in this
I-
tournament.
I guess a PB's all right.
Yeah, I think so. I started shaking so bad at the end.
I shook the entire run.
Yeah, no, it can get pretty nerve-wracking towards the end of this, especially when you're pretty close to PB, or in your case, you know, ahead of it by a good bit.
And there's the whole problem with a lot more people watching you than normal.
Yeah, that too.
All right, so pretty sick races. What do you all have coming up for the rest of the weekend and/or next week?
I haven't really planned anything for the races, but there's still a lot of races I need to do, so we'll probably plan them in the next days.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get a race or two in this weekend.
I guess I will still practicing, and I have my next race Tuesday, so not so far to that.
Sounds good, guys. I wish you all the best of luck going forward. Thank you all for the amazing show you all put on today.
Thank you, man.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
It was fun.
Yeah, thank you all for being here, and congrats on the times, and to start specifically the PB.
Thank you.
Right? Any final words from you, Pyru?
No, it's been a good race. Had fun doing it.
Not really.
All right, so we have a couple more races planned out today. Coming up on Speed Gaming 4, we have Babai and Crobat Master. And then at 9, we'll have another two-way race between Flittervy and Artie Walshavy and Dave Stereo and Silverfist. Be sure to catch those. We have a ton of Celeste planned out for this weekend and going into next week. If you do !R and !C, you can follow the runners and the commentators. And I believe that's it for us. So thank you all for being here, and be sure to watch a lot more this weekend. All right.
Yeah.
All right.